now we will be giving the mic to each individual so that they can have a 5-minute section of speaking about their background and being undocumented or such relations. So here's the first panelist.
I thought I was going to be last, so go with me. So hi, my name is Leslie Seguera. I graduated from UCLA in 2012, so about 2 years ago. And I am undocumented and unafraid. So I immigrated from Mexico when I was 5 years old. This was in '96, and my mom, she came here to give me a better life. She always told me that I was the only child at that point, and she's like, I wanted you to have a better education, and I wanted you to just have a lot more opportunities than I would have in Mexico. So she just decided to pack her bags and just one day decided to move to the U.S. And because of that, my life has extremely changed from what it would have been in Mexico. I had the opportunity to live in a very nice area, so I didn't really struggle with a lot of the poverty that a lot of undocumented folks have. We had a very stable life. Other than that, I mean, things were pretty good. So when I was in high school, I had a lot of resources. I knew it was undocumented, but I didn't understand it. I was like, I don't have papers, but what does that mean? What are my limitations? I just didn't know that. I knew I couldn't drive, and I knew I couldn't work, but other than that, there was no other limitations for me. And so up until my last year in high school was when it started hitting me, and I started realizing, like, oh darn, like, things are going to be tough. I mentioned to a couple of counselors that I was undocumented, and they just gave me the AB 540 paper, like, oh, this is what you should apply, but none of them ever took the time to explain it to me. So I was very, very, very confused, and my mom also, she kind of kept reminding me, hey, apply to scholarships. We need to figure out how you're going to pay for college. And in my head, I was like, oh, no, I'll worry about that later. Like every other high school student. And eventually, when I did get accepted into colleges, I got accepted into Berkeley, and I was really happy I was going to Berkeley, and I had applied for this $10,000 scholarship at Berkeley, and unfortunately, I didn't get it, and that's when things got really, really difficult, and I'm like, how am I going to pay over $20,000 when that's what my mom makes to go to college? And I was like, oh shit, and I was like, no, you just can't go to Berkeley. Like, that's not an option. So I had also been admitted to UCLA, and after being depressed for like a month and being angry, and I was like, I had worked my ass off in high school, I had graduated at the top of my class, and I was like, oh shit, I need to get my shit together. And so, sorry. And so I submitted a letter to UCLA, and they let me back in, and initially it was hard. I was commuting 4 hours a day. So all the way from Upland in the San Gabriel Valley to UCLA, I was on the bus. And things were very, very difficult in the beginning, but ideas helped me come to cope with what it meant to be undocumented. They helped me realize that I didn't have to be afraid of being undocumented. I didn't have to be ashamed of being undocumented. And because of the support group and all the resources that they had, I was able to come to terms with that. And now, like, I just tell everybody I'm undocumented. Like, I go on a date, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm undocumented, just so you know. And that's what I do because I'm so comfortable with my status that it's just a part of me, it's part of my identity. And thanks to that, like, I owe ideas so much, and hopefully y'all took the time to learn a lot from today.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I just want to say thank you very, very much for coming out today. My name is Peter Liu, and I'm currently a senior in our academy. So here's my story. I'm from China. So back in China, my parents, they had tons of financial issues. So while I was in the 5th grade, they divorced, and they decided to just leave me. And then so at that moment I was alone without any parents, so I went to my grandparents' house. My grandparents took care of me for 2 years, but however they got really sick, so I had to find another place to live. That's when my uncle reached out to me. My uncle is currently a U.S. citizen, so that's why he said, how about let's just let Peter to come here so I can take care of him. So back 4.5 years ago, when I was in 8th grade, I came to United States to my middle school when I was in 8th grade. At that time, I didn't know any English at all, so I didn't speak a word of English. I was really afraid, I was terrified. So my uncle told me just keep it down, be quiet, and don't let everyone know. Just like everyone, at that time I was really afraid. But however, while I was in 9th grade, in class, suddenly a flyer dropped on my desk, and then when I read the flyer, it says ideas immigrant youth empowerment conference. At that time, and under the description, it said like if you're an undocumented student, you can get help and resources. At that time, I was really surprised. I was like, how did the teacher know I was undocumented? I was like, how did the teacher find out? And then, but when I looked around, everyone in the classroom got the flyer. I was like, okay, I didn't. Safe. So at that time, I went to the conference. It was very empowering, but at that time, I didn't speak out. I didn't think activism was for me, just like everyone here did a moment ago. Nobody wanted to answer a question until I'm here. So I was very afraid. However, a year later, I went back to the conference again. At that time, I had the courage to reach out. So I reached out to Aspire, an organization which stands for Asian Students Promoting Immigrant Rights Through Education, which is a grassroots organization based in Los Angeles. After a year of activism, I become more vocal, and after meetings, I started to speak out. And my first experience as speaking out, it was on a Sunday when we were having a rally at a train station. I was representing Aspire. However, at that time, I didn't know I had to speak for Aspire or come out or anything. But near the end of the conference, the coordinator asked, Peter, would you like to speak for Aspire? Would you represent Aspire like in front of everyone in the crowd, everyone in the rally? I said, at that time, a million thoughts went through my head. I was thinking, will I be deported? What will happen to me? And I'm the only Asian here, and what will they say, and will they understand my struggles? At that time, I thought, if I don't speak up, who else was I giving up on? So I stood in front of everyone holding a microphone. I said, I'm undocumented, I'm afraid. At that time, that's my first time coming out in the public, and ever since I have been doing this for 2 years now. I've been to tons and tons of conferences, and went to Arizona to the United Region Congress, and as a high school student, all those power given to me doesn't really come from within me. It's more from the people I see every day, all the activists around me, and all the educators. Without the educator passing out a flyer on my desk, I would never get involved with the activism, and I would never be able to share all the story in front of you and applying and have the thought of applying to college in the fall. So your role is very important, and that's why I'm very happy to be here and share my story and more information with you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paloma Pineda, and I work for a continuation high school in La Fuente. I'm a history Spanish teacher, and I too was undocumented, so I know the struggles all too well. Every day in America we have students sitting with a big secret, and they are afraid. They're still afraid, and I wish that I was like her and said I was also unafraid. But back when I went into school, it was very different. I remember when we came to the United States back in 1989. I was like at the end of my 2nd grade, and it was changing my culture class, I'm sorry. And it was just my mom and I. So I just remember all the struggles. My mom went from being a teacher to cleaning toilets at night. I remember her hiding sometimes because she didn't have enough money to pay the rent that particular month. And so we moved from neighborhood to neighborhood. And by the time I reached high school, I had adapted pretty well to this lifestyle, but it dawned on me, I'm different. People started asking questions. Why aren't you applying to college? Why aren't you applying, for this, for that? Why aren't you applying for your driver's license, or a driver's permit? And I was always making excuses, as to why I couldn't do that. Until a counselor took notice and started pushing me, and then I broke down and I said, well, I can't. I don't have a social security number. I didn't quite understand. I just couldn't do many of the things my peers were doing. I couldn't even take the SATs. So I had to take some other form of test, which I don't remember the name. And then he also, my counselor, Mr. Wislow, he said, we're going to help you. We're going to do anything we can to help you. And, he even covered some of the fees for the application fee. And, one by one, I started getting those rejection letters and saying, we're very sorry, your status is not very clear, you cannot come to our school. The only school who accepted me was Whittier College, and I remember being extremely happy and proud to say, Mom, I'm going to make you proud, I'm going to continue your dream. But unfortunately, we couldn't afford the $30,000, a year, so I had to say, thank you, but I cannot come. I graduated high school, with such great uncertainty. I don't know what I'm doing, right, or what's going to happen to it. I remember we did try to file for our papers, but they just keep giving us the runaround. We didn't know anything. Everything was so uncertain, and I'm sorry. Prior to that, 2 teachers offered to adopt me because they said you gotta go to college. I ended up graduating 8 out of a class of 300, and they kind of wanted to join in and help me, and they just couldn't do it because we had passed that age limit. And so I couldn't go to school, I couldn't do anything. And so then I got more bad news, towards the summer after I graduated high school. I received, notice that I was going to be deported. So that nothing to hold me back, hold me to this country. I had no children, I had no husband, nothing. So my now husband came to see me, and I'm crying. I said, I'm going to be deported on Monday. This was a Wednesday. And we just started crying, and he said, no, let's just get married. I said, really? He said, yes. I said, okay. I was like, not the proposal I had dreamed of, I'll take that. So I called my mom at work, and I said, you need to get out of work. I'm getting married tonight. And it was silent. And she just started crying. She said, no, let's go to Mexico. And I said, no, I don't want to go back to Mexico. What are you talking about? No. She cried the whole way, and I had nothing to wear, of course, being, my mom's single mother, no white dress and things. So I said, what do I wear? I found a dress that had white on the bottom, black on top, like some black flowers. I said, okay, good enough. And we went, we got married, and so the judge, he was very, very nice, but there were some issues with, with me getting my paperwork. And so that was it. I was 18. I didn't become a resident until I was 24. And so I ended up going to a community college because that was all we could afford to, and I finished, I got my AA, and still no papers. So I said, what do I do now? I went for an AS degree that I never used, but I said, okay, I'll do that because I knew if I left school, I would not go back. And so I ended up getting a degree in pet science. I don't know what it's for, to be honest, but I have that somewhere in my, and so finally, Greg Davis, and to this day, he might have, made a lot of mistakes, but he's one of my heroes, AB 540, and I was able to transfer to Cal Poly Pomona, but then I got pregnant. So it took me, a 4-year degree took me 13 years to obtain, but now I'm an educator, and I remember what it was like, when I was in school, feeling that shame, being labeled. And I work at a continuation high school, so these kids are stigmatized already. They're labeled as the bad kids, and and the interesting thing is that I'm back in the neighborhood where it all began. I tell them, that corner house in Avery, that's where I grew up, and that's where I grew up. So you could have an undocumented teacher standing in front of you. Imagine all the possibilities for you. I try as an educator to create that safe haven. I share my story whenever I can. I tell them, they laugh how one time I was pulled over and they sent me walking, with my backpack. I was on my way to school. I'm carrying my backpack, my books, and crying, and I said, okay, geez, now that's my car. And now it's like, once I got that driver's license, okay, pull me over, But, so I'm very open with my students and say, look, there's nothing to be ashamed of. There are resources. Mount SAC, which is the community college in our area, they're very, very helpful. And we are a small school, and we all work together to try to provide assistance and guidance to these kids. And And once again, thank you for allowing me to share my story. Hello everyone, my name is Sayo Camacho. I'm a fourth year doctoral student at UCLA. So I was undocumented until my sophomore year of high school, and the undocumented and unafraid movement didn't exist, so I was very much in the closet and very afraid. But acted like I wasn't. I was the oldest of four, and I worked so hard to have my high school portfolio get me to a good college. So we had to go back to Mexico without papers. Terrifying. And managed to get some papers to go through the process. And while I was going through the process, I saw the family before me get torn apart, and knowing that they weren't going to be able to be reunited, and then we were next in line. And I was so worried because I had spent most of my life here in the United States that I thought, they're going to recognize my accent. I have a gringa accent. They didn't, and we got the stamp, and I was able to come back and go to college. So in thinking about my educational process and what it meant, I remembered this article by Alejandro Corubias, I'm also a nerd, titled Quantitative Intersectionality and Critical Race Analysis of the Chicano Educational Pipeline. And it's my understanding that you're all going to be emailed this article. And it breaks down the 2009 census data. And so this is specific to the Mexican population. 44% of students entering the educational pipeline are eventually pushed out before completing their high school diploma. Of the remaining 56% who graduate from high school, 27 will enroll in college, some going to community college and others enrolling in four-year universities. We find that of the 27 who move on to college, 5 will terminate their educational journey having earned only an associate's degree, whereas 10 will earn a baccalaureate. Still, of those who enter college, 12 will be pushed out prematurely, having earned no degree. Of the 10 with a bachelor's degree, only 2 will earn a graduate or professional degree, and an insufficient 0.2% will earn a doctorate. And those numbers are worse for lower income, non-resident Mexicans in the educational pipeline. And so it's no wonder that in graduate school I feel isolated, I doubt my capabilities, and sometimes even a sense of belonging, right? But I also understand that I'm in this space and I have a tremendous amount of responsibility. And so what I've tried to do is to redefine academic spaces in different forms, and really owning my activist identity in graduate school, which is very difficult to do. I've been very involved with our graduate student union, and I actually approached Leslie in 2011 or 12 and said, what can we do to help the community? And she said, we need to go to grad school, and I said, on it. And so it took since 2012 till the ratification of the contract, which was this year. So it took 2 years to happen. But we're in the process of implementing a program that's going to allow undocumented students in graduate school TA, which means tuition remission, health care, stipends, the whole nine, and really support us in the pipeline. And so, yeah, that's what I've been working on. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and I think some of you, or all of you, met me already while serving breakfast and lunch. Again, I'm Diana Gica. I am a mom. Blood, where are you? He's my rock. He's the reason I'm here. And forgive me for being a person. Oh, sorry. You wouldn't think so, right? Anyway, I'm undocumented, unafraid, and unashamed. And I went out in March 2012 because of the IDEA students. Do you guys know what IDEAS means? Stands for? I will tell you if you don't know. And if you know, I will remind you. Is improving dreams, equality, access, and success. And this is one of the first and the largest student-based organizations in the country. And what these students are doing for us as parents is amazing. So I met Leslie in 2011 at the Youth Empowerment Conference. And you know, that's how I got involved with the movement. I was very shy, very afraid. Then, when I saw what they were doing, I was like, whatever. If they're gonna arrest me, they're gonna arrest me. I survived communism and secret services in Romania. In case you didn't notice, we are Romanians and we are white, and we were told at some point when we were going to UCLA at the orientations for Undocumented Students program, some of the students thought that, oh, these white people are in the wrong room. They wonder what they're doing here. Okay. Briefly, my story started in 2001 when, as a single mother, I decided to come and work in the United States. I'm a former attorney and parliamentary counselor. I worked for the Romanian Senate and Department of Justice, preparing the laws. So can you think what a switch it was for somebody like me that was obeying the law 100%, not only obeying the law, but writing the law for the members of the parliament, coming here and becoming undocumented. The story is a bit longer. I was brought here on false promises of a work permit. If you guys want to see me and my story, go forward that US Liana's story and you will see what it's all about. However, because you are all educators, I just want to say my hat off to all of you. I know how hard you work, and because you are here, it means to me that you love us and you accept us and our kids. If it wasn't for an educator at Taft High School in Woodland Hills, her name is Elisa Sagardia, my son wouldn't be a student today. Or maybe it would have been 10,000 times harder. I was afraid. Romanian community and culture is very close culture. You don't say that you're undocumented, you're a pariah, you're a loser, you're somebody really bad if you're undocumented. Something is wrong with you. So first of all, we were ashamed to come out within our community, but we were also a minority within the minority of the undocumented community, because there are not too many Romanians that we could talk about it, you know. So Elisa, she became our friend, and she really liked Vlad since the 9th grade, and I did tell her, hey, I'm here for his education, and I'm a very involved mother. Please bear with me. I'm going to have a lot of questions for you. So within the first 2 years of high school, we kind of developed a relationship. She had no clue we were undocumented. But then on the beginning of the 11th grade, I started worrying because I didn't know anything about the college system. I didn't know anything about money. How he's going to be able to afford college? Because I knew I couldn't. So I came out and I told her. And she was so gracious. She was so good. The first thing she did, she said, have Vlad apply to become a college counselor, peer college counselor. So she got him into the college office. And that was heaven for us, because this is how we learned about it. Not only that we learned about, but Vlad was able to help the other students that he knew they were undocumented. So she basically changed our lives. Not only that she got him and he became a peer college counselor, but she also referred him and gave him all the paperwork for all kinds of scholarships that were coming our way. Because you have to know, there are no scholarships for white Romanians, undocumented. There are none, okay? If you are a Latino, if you are Asian, if you are African American, yes, you may be undocumented, you have a lot of scholarships, but there are none for Romanians or Eastern Europeans. So, long story short, Brad wiped up all the scholarships at that high school that year. So with that made about $5,000, we were able to pay his first quarter because, you know, at that time we didn't have the California Dream Act, so we had to pay out of pocket. It was very difficult for us. But then the good part is that we came into the UCLA family and the IDS family. We attended the Youth Empowerment Conference. We learned and we knew the allies. UCLA has a very good resource center, Brain Resource Center, Undocumented Students Program, and the coordinator there is Angela Chen. And also another huge ally that they have is the 580 Cafe. Some of you may have in your folders a little business card, Jean Rose Smith. There is a safe space for the undocumented students at UCLA. They get hot meals, they get counseling, they get a space to study. And you can let know the parents that are considering sending their students, their children to UCLA, that is a safe space. And I know my time is up, I'm gonna close by sharing with you something very dear to me. And it's a personal, I would consider that a personal achievement. Last year I was here. I was not part of the panel because my son was one of the PD project directors, and he said, I'm not going to put you on a panel because I'm organizing this and it's not fair for you to be there, okay? Which is fair, it's fine. But I had to meet educators like you. And then I met the same educators in May at the Youth Empowerment Conference. Not only that, they were coming with buses of students and parents that were attending that life-changing conference, but they were telling me, we created our own ideas at our high schools or community colleges. So thank you so much for being here, and if you can leave today thinking like the art teacher earlier, you're not stepping into anybody's toes if you consider forming your own groups. That will be very, very helpful. And just think that you are like the apostles. You are making a difference in so many people's lives. And thank you again.
Thank you. Now we will open up to the audience for questions. We're having some issues.
Well, but you can still have questions.
Okay, so we came up with some questions, and we would like at least one or two of the panelists to answer. What is one good or bad experience you had with an educator with seeking help as an undocumented individual?
So I will share the good side. Okay, in my high school, my counselor is really supportive. I have several counselors, and they are very understanding of the issue. I know it's not the case for everyone, but I informed them about the conference, the empowerment conference, and they came along and they learned about information. And throughout the years, I have seen them working with undocumented students, advising them on plan to college, financial aid. So from my perspective, one thing that educators can do besides just showing the support is maybe have a sign in the office, or have like a just something that shows in your classroom thing, like you are a supporter of like other students, so they can talk to you. And it's really important to have a mentor. Now, it's not saying you have to be the mentor, maybe guide them to help them find a mentor, peer mentoring with friends or like from outside organizations. It's important to have a support, because sometimes it's really hard to talk to someone who doesn't understand the issue. So from my experience, all the educators around me are very supportive, and I have only received positive feedbacks and positive relationships with them.
So I'll feel bad. So UCLA labor relations is, I'm going to say this, really disconnected to the mission and purpose of the university. And when we were negotiating this program for undocumented students, the conversation in the beginning was very much like, we don't have to talk about this. This isn't a mandated issue in your contract. And next. And so then having to organize around that and get really what was, on the other side, right, a group of white people to understand that not only was it a work issue, but that there was urgency around it. And I think the most frustrating part was when they seemed to have gotten it and then said, we'll do this, we'll go lobby with you in Washington. And I said, no, that's racist. That's not going to do anything, because we need to resolve the issue now for students now, and we're not going to sign something just so you can posture that you're doing something for the community when you're not. And I unfortunately think that attitude is oftentimes too common in education spaces, and it's really important to call it when you see it, and to organize around it, right? Because then in the very end, the story has a happy ending. Duckett, who was right below Napolitano, the president of the UC, said, after we signed the contract, they said, we especially want to thank you for bringing the undocumented issue to our attention. We're so proud that this is something that's in your contract. And it didn't come from them, it came from us, the community, and so that's just something to remember.
Does anyone in the crowd have any questions? Okay, we'll ask our next one. One or two again. What do you think is the best advice an undocumented student can get from an educator?
Yeah, so I'll answer this one. No? I think that you shouldn't be held back by sometimes the limitations that the laws have given you. At least when I was in school, we didn't have a California Dream Act, we didn't have a DACA. You were, legitimately undocumented, you didn't have any papers, so things were struggling. At least a lot of us commuted from our homes. I commuted 4 hours, 2-hour bus ride each way. A lot of my friends worked 2 to 3 jobs to try to pay for tuition. There wasn't any, now people are getting money for housing, they're getting their tuition paid for, but even right now there's still people who don't have DACA. Let's not forget that there's still people who don't qualify for, California Dream Act, and there's still people who don't qualify for DACA, so let's not forget about them. So making sure that they, you can hustle it. Make sure that you can make it work. A lot of us didn't live on campus. A lot of us had to, squeeze every penny. Sometimes people wouldn't eat, and that's not the healthiest thing. I don't recommend it. But making sure that sometimes you gotta count pennies. Like, my mom and I were counting quarters and dimes to make sure that we were paying $4,000 for tuition. So definitely, it's sometimes how much are you willing to put out there. Some people apply to over 80 scholarships out there. Making sure that you utilize every resource, tell your story to people, just randomly telling your story, and then people will be willing to donate money. I have other friends who would receive like $1,000 in donations to help them pay for tuition. So it's really about being out there and being active and being really, really proactive and taking the initiative to make change. Hey, if someone's not going to willing to help me, this door got shut, but then I'll try the next one. Because that's the only way to kind of make it through. I know, at least when I saw, we were hustling 101. And that's how we made it out of college. So making sure that you instill that sense of mentality in the students that things are not going to be easy, and you tried your best in high school and you were the top of your class, but doesn't mean it's going to be like that in college. And sometimes they do need that reality check, even though they're a little young, but it's worth it.
Aside of the fact that always support them and tell them the sky is the limit, and literally the sky is the limit, at least in this country. I know stories. It's one of the students, graduate students, one of his teachers at his high school organized a fundraising, and that's how they put the money together for his first quarter tuition. One of the professors, if my son has DACA today, it's because we were missing $250. I'm mostly unemployed, not because I don't like to work. We cleaned bathrooms, we cleaned houses, I nannied, I did live in, so I did everything honest possible to make money to support my son. However, it wasn't enough, and there is a professor in San Diego that reached out to his personal network and we got a check of $250 from a family from Texas. We never met that people. They didn't know much about us. We just sent out a thank you note. So there are so many ways that you can help your students. There are two professors at UCLA, Professor Valenzuela and Professor Wong, the director of this labor center, that twice a year they organize dinners for the ideas students in their own houses, and they cook and they cater and they clean. It's just to create a safe space for the students to relax and to forget for a few hours about the hardship they have. Every single little thing that you can do, it helps a lot. So, yeah.
Okay, well, that is the end of our conference. Give them a round of applause. Oh, she has something to say.
I just wanted to conclude by sharing a nice little quote from my colleague. It said that every kid is born carrying a doll away from becoming a success story. So you could be that one person, just one person to make a difference. You know, no matter where the child comes from, you know, reach out and open up.
Thank you.
Hi everybody. Just a reminder, please make sure to fill out your program evaluations. They should be in your folder.